Meanwhile, we check in once a month with our area legislators, in particular our representatives in the Michigan House. And one of them is Representative Dave Maturen, who is back in the studio with us today. Good morning, Dave.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, welcome back. We haven't seen you face-to-face in a few months after your traffic incident, and we've been talking by phone for a little while as you were getting back in the swing of things. Here you are, good as new.
Well, almost. I'm starting to get my mobility back, so it's good to be up and about.
That's great. So you've been back in Lansing, obviously, already, too, right?
Yeah, we came back last week, so.
Mm-hmm. And you were there on time. That was the goal. All right, good. In fact, there are a ton of things that are being discussed at this point. First, though, let me ask you about auto insurance premiums. We talked a little bit about this before, and then there was a package being pulled together, and a number of representatives stood behind the podium in favor of that. I didn't see you there, but I don't know if that means that you're wild or not wild on this.
I wasn't involved in putting together the package of bills we haven't seen yet. Mm-hmm. It's a concept, and so it wasn't something that I was involved in, so I wasn't invited to. In fact, I was surprised as anybody to see this in the news.
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah,
okay.
It wasn't something I'm working on, so it's not a committee I'm on. Wasn't something I'm working on.
And you haven't seen it yet?
I haven't. I don't think anybody has. I think there's some concepts out there. I know I did attend a senior citizen forum about a month ago in Kalamazoo, and at that forum, the folks from CPAN were there, and they said they were going to have a package of bills or some concepts out later this month, later September, so perhaps this is part of it. I'm not sure. But again, until you actually see the bills themselves and somebody does the analysis, it's kind of hard to say, that's great, let's vote for it. I see even the chair of insurance, Lana Tice, was quoted as, saying something about, some of the concepts she thought were good, but others she thought weren't and wouldn't decrease rates at all. So here's a lady that runs the insurance committee. It's going to have to come before her committee. So I'm not sure how much coordination there was with her, with this group of supposedly bipartisan folks. The picture, I saw some Republicans and Democrats. Yeah. That's good. Nothing wrong with that if we can get together and agree on something. This was tried last year, never came up for a vote. I didn't think the incentive of $100 a year cut for 2 years was sufficient to make some drastic changes. That people are talking about substantial changes, not minor changes.
Right. And I did see Representative Bison in that picture. He'll be here later this week, so we'll ask him about it too. But the notion, though, is if we just speak more broadly about this, that there seems to be a willingness to talk about this and try and come up with something now.
Well, I would hope so. It's something that obviously impacts everybody. We're told that we have the highest insurance rates in the nation. That's what we're told. Now, whether you count Detroit or not in there, of course, and they claim that half the folks in Detroit don't even have insurance because they can't afford it, so they're driving without insurance. That's one of the other issues I'm sure Mayor Duggan is working with folks on. Let's see what's out there. If there's a method by which we can save folks a decent amount of money on their insurance, and let's take a look at it and have a serious debate. And there'll be some trade-offs. You just got to see if that trade-off is worth worth whatever reduction you get.
Well, and you talk about the two problems there: the cost of insurance for those of us who have it, and then the notion that there are some out there who just don't have it. They get it for a short period of time so they get their plate renewed, and then they let it lapse, and then they drive around.
Yeah, 7-day insurance. There's something wrong with that where that can't be tracked, and as soon as that expires, the people then are driving as long as they want.
Yeah,
till they get pulled over.
Or something worse happens.
Yep,
I have a friend who lives in California, got hit recently by a driver whose insurance had lapsed, and so it creates a whole new bucket of problems that you have to deal with. Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get a chance to take a good, serious look at it, and we'll see what comes of the, I think, 12 bills they said they're going to have. So.
Okay. So another thing you're working on has to do with disabled veterans, true?
That's correct, yes.
What is this about now? It's bills dealing with tax exemptions.
Right. Probably the principal one right now, when the law was passed before I was in the legislature, to essentially allow veterans, 100% disabled veterans as defined by the federal government, to pay no property taxes at all. I think that was a nice gesture. But what they've done is it's really easy for us to sit there in Lansing and give stuff away. I mean, you're exempt. This is exempt. We're going to give you credit for this, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't cost us anything. And what my bill does would essentially, like anybody else who gets money back on a homestead property tax credit or a partially disabled veteran, any folks in those categories, they pay their taxes first, and then they file for an income tax refund at the end of the year. Well, everybody else is capped at $1,200. 100% disabled veterans are there's no cap on the amount, but to say you got a zero assessment, and that means the local unit of the government who supplies them with police, fire, road plowing, water, sewer, everything else that local government does, they're not getting reimbursed for that property. And in some cases, there's a fair amount of properties in a political jurisdiction. And so, you know, if it's good enough for us to do in the legislature, that burden should be, I guess, felt by all the citizens in the state of Michigan to show our gratitude for folks who are 100% disabled veterans. I think that's the right thing to do, and so my bill would essentially have them pay it, they get reimbursed, and that way the local units of government supply them with really the services that they need on a daily basis, get reimbursed.
Yeah.
Or don't even, I mean, it's not reimbursed, they get paid for it, and that's, to me, the best way to look at it.
This sounds like something maybe that came to your attention as a result of maybe a constituent or something that brought this to your attention. Is that true? I don't know. I'm asking.
It was just something that I've been thinking about ever since I saw the law passed. And I'm thinking, why do you want to, essentially cut the legs out from the folks that actually provide them with services on a daily basis? Your window gets broken, the police come, you have a fire, the fire truck comes, and yet you're not paying for it.
Yeah.
They don't get reimbursed for it.
All right, so there's one. You're also sponsoring the bill that is as a result of this terrible story a few months ago of Chief Ed Switolski in Comstock, who was killed on the side of the road responding to an emergency situation. Right. There is a bill out there to name a portion of I-94 in his honor. There
is, right. Senator Margaret O'Brien introduced a bill, I think, a week or so ago. I've got a similar bill in the House, and we'll see, I guess, whose bill comes through first.
Okay. This happens from time to time when there's some collaboration there, and the introductions happen at similar times. And
I think it's just, I think it's the appropriate thing to do for Chief Switolski. It's sort of an innocent bystander with an errant motorist, it sounds like, and he ends up, out there doing his job,
right?
And ends up being killed, and so I think recognition, I think, would be certainly in order.
There is a stretch of that road that's named for the Kalamazoo public safety officer who was killed, and this can happen at the same time, right? Right,
exactly. I think a greater portion of 94 is named for Eric Zapata. I think that may have been a bill by Senator Tanya Shoemaker. I'm not sure, but it's possible to have sections coincide.
All right, and so that is probably going to move through fairly quickly. No, you think?
I would think so. We'll have to see. I haven't. I just introduced it last Thursday.
Yeah, right away.
We'll see where it is this week.
Another thing you're working on has to do with state ID cards and veterans. What's this about?
Well, it's in conjunction. Senator Margaret O'Brien's got Senate Bill 404, and it's simply waiving the fee for state ID cards for veterans.
So simple as that.
Yep, pretty simple.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Here's an interesting thing that we might not have realized could go on, and maybe it does. And we talk with Darrell Burke on a weekly basis about home improvements and construction and things of that nature, and how to handle these sorts of things. It sort of fits into those discussions. If you have a contractor or a subcontractor, they should be able to show you a license, but they may not have to, the way things are now.
Well, they're supposed to, and I've got a real estate appraiser license. I got my license in my pocket. If somebody ever wanted to see it, they certainly could. I'm regulated by the state of Michigan, and so are contractors. And one of the issues that came up, and I co-sponsored a bill of Senator Tommy Brand from the Wyoming area introduced it, and apparently had a constituent who had a contractor's lien filed against them. And once that gets filed in court, you got to react to it.
Boy.
And but the fact of the matter is that person ended up not even being a licensed contractor. So long story short, if you're going to file a lien against somebody as a contractor, you got to have your license to show the people at the clerk's office when you file that. So it's really pretty simple. And, you know, again, you're not supposed to be doing construction work without a contractor's license. So it would stop that whole process from happening for people who aren't licensed filing liens, and they really can't do that because they're unlicensed individuals. Is there a sense that we have a problem with this issue, or that it's pretty unique? Well, you know, again, it's not something that I had firsthand knowledge of. He had a constituent. I got to think it's probably happened before. Yeah. People, you know, let's say, well, let's give it a shot. We'll go ahead and file a lien. If they pay it, if we can get something out of them, fine, even though we're not licensed. So it just it creates a havoc for people anytime you start getting legal papers thrown at you. You know, it's a little traumatic, time-consuming, perhaps expensive to get rid of it. So this is simply make it simple. You file a lien, you got to show your license. That's all. All right. So it's kind of interesting. This list of things on which you're working are fairly routine things. Most of the time, I think this is probably the category that you're operating in. Things that are somewhat routine. Not a lot of drama, but makes some sense, right? Well, yeah, I like to approach these things from a common sense perspective, and just things that make everybody's, their everyday lives a little bit easier. You know, whether it's tax policy, those kind of issues, traps people fall through, cracks in the legislative process. Just trying to make people's lives a little bit easier, make government a little bit more understandable or more sensible, I guess, to the average person. So. All right. We talked about this before. I'll give you another chance. The part-time legislature idea. We've talked with Dr. Bison about it, too, and he came back last time quite impassioned against it with concern. And you, of course, were concerned, too, when we talked about it initially, about what that means. How do you feel today about it? Have you changed at all in your thinking? You know, not really. I think combined with term limits, I think it's going to be not a very good situation. Again, we don't spend enough time to really learn the ins and outs of everything that we have jurisdiction over. By knowing maybe in depth one or two departments, how they work. That's what the current system we have, and then to make it part time. I just think and squeeze it into one portion of the year. Hey, we whatever the people vote on, they're constitutional amendments. We have to live with them. But I think you're handing a lot more power over to the bureaucrats, to administration, and I think the people's voice think tends to get just gets diminished. I think substantially by handing over more power to the folks that just are going to be there year in, year out. Right. All right. Well, it's nice to see you again back here in front of us as opposed to on the phone and all of that. Glad to see things are back to normal. Pleasure to be here. All right. Representative Dave Maturen, we'll talk to you again next month. Thanks.